Okay. So thanks for joining today. We are talking about warming up. So that is all that we're talking about today. I chose this topic because we just opened up 3 weeks ago, I think now. So just going back to the basics of like what it looks like to exercise and do it well and trying to prevent injuries and all that kind of good stuff. So that is the goal of today. And to also inform you of benefits and then also getting into the mental aspect of it, which is what I'm like really excited about and excited to talk about. So we will get started. What is warming up? So warming up, if you Google it, just Google warming up, the first thing that comes up is if you are doing an activity that requires a higher level of muscle activation compared to your daily living activities. Sorry, no, it says to prepare for physical exertion or performance by exercising or practicing gentle beforehand or reheat previously cooked food. And I was going to take that out, but I was like, you know what? That is so perfect for me because I could sit here and have a whole let's get real on food, if you know me. But that is not what we're talking about. That's not the type of warming up we are discussing today. And so I'm sure this isn't a foreign concept to you all, but the goal is to just kind of learn the benefits and why we do it and when to do it. So first thing we're going to talk about is when you should warm up. So that's what I just said earlier is when you should warm up. If you are doing an activity that requires a higher level of muscle activation compared to your daily living activities, you need to do a warm up. So the example that I thought of, it's kind of simple, but if you don't walk a lot, like let's say you sit at a desk for most of the day, you don't really get up and move around, you end up not working out in the middle of the day, you just don't end up walking a lot. And then your exercise for the day is going out and walking for 30 minutes or trying to hit 2 miles or 3 miles or something like that. Because you don't do a lot of walking at the end of the day is an exercise. It's not something that you do as a daily living activity. So you should warm up. And it all just depends on what kind of walking you're doing. If you're doing a lot of speed walking or whatever, warming up a little bit longer. If it's just a leisurely stroll with your friends, maybe not too much of a warm up, but that's the idea is that if it's something that you just don't normally do and it's outside of your daily living activity, you need to do a warm up, which ends up being a lot of the things that we do. So, what does a warm up look like? First thing that I like to do, and I think a lot of people like to do, is foam rolling. And so that's a self myofascial release. This helps release muscle tension. There is a thing with foam rolling. I recommend it for everything. I love to foam roll. I do it just kind of randomly throughout the day. I do have that I have that benefit of working at a gym. I know that's a little bit harder for people that work at a desk. But the thing about foam rolling is if you feel like you have to foam roll for a prolonged period of time to feel ready to work out, I would recommend that you become more active throughout the day. So if you feel like, oh, I have to foam roll for like 20 to 30 minutes before I even start really warming up and doing my exercises, that probably means, and if like you're like, oh, I'm like super duper tight, that probably just means you're not moving around a lot. So you're a little bit more sedentary. So I would recommend that you become a little bit more active throughout the day. But then from foam rolling, if that's what you choose to start out with, I would move into some low level cardio. And that could be jogging, jumping jacks, butt kicks, high knees, literally anything to get the body temperature up and heart rate up, which is also what does a warm up look like? That's in the points as well. But then a majority of your warm up probably is going to be or should be dynamic stretches and then a focus on mobility. And if you must, I know I feel like we've all kind of, I think the narrative is starting to change, but static stretching used to always be. I remember in college when we would play basketball, we would static stretch for a long period of time. Like after we did all of our dynamic stuff, we would sit there and static stretch. And that's not really super recommended, but if you must, if you just feel like I have to static stretch, is what I've always done, I would recommend doing that pretty early on. So probably right after foam rolling or right before foam rolling, and then just keep it really minimal, like a couple of seconds. But some exercises for a dynamic stretch and then some mobility would be a favorite of ours is a world's greatest stretch, some lunges, arm circles, and then a lot of things with bands, so like banded walks, banded internal, external shoulder rotations. I mean, the list can go on and on and on. There's so many things we can do. And like I said, your heart rate should be elevated, your body temperature should be elevated. So that means that you're probably breathing a little bit heavier than normal, and you're probably, I wouldn't say that you're drenched in sweat or anything like that, but you should be like starting to get warm. Like if a fan's not on you and like you're not getting a breeze, you're like, oh, I need to turn on the fan. And if you watched any of our virtual classes, that happened a lot where the fan was off, and then by the end of our warm up, you're like, oh, I need the fan. So that kind of indicates your body temperature is starting to be elevated. And then last is exercise specific. I think a lot of times when we're doing a warm up, we forget this part. Hopefully not. Hopefully you're better than that. But I know I did for a while, is that I need to be doing things that are going to translate into what I'm about to do. So if I'm over there in my warm up sprinting or like doing some sprints, and then I turn around and I go weightlift, that just isn't really exercise specific at all. So things you can do to be like doing a warm up that's exercise specific, you can do your whole workout just at a slower pace and less intensity. So if you made it yourself, or actually I'm going to use the WOW that we did last week, where it was a row, a kettlebell swing, and a squat. If you know that's the workout you're about to do, you should, a good exercise specific thing for your warm up is to do that whole circuit. So row, maybe not the whole 200 meters or whatever, but row and then do some kettlebell swings and then do some squats. And that could be with weight or without weight or at a lighter weight than what was prescribed. So that's a good example of exercise specific and how to do your warm up. And that kind of transitions us into this next topic of a warm up doesn't just have to be body weight exercises. Warming up still goes beyond body weight. So, for example, when weightlifting, you should incorporate warm up sets. When running, you should incorporate jogging or sprints. And so, for example, you're squatting, and that's like a big lift that's programmed for your workout. So instead of just doing body weight squats, your warm up should then continue when you get under the bar. So either, depending on how much weight you're lifting, right now, like for me specifically, I'm not lifting a lot of weight. I haven't been squatting regularly, so I'm kind of starting new. So a little bit of my warm up sets is just the bar, and that's 45 pounds. So I say that lightly. I mean, 45 pounds is kind of heavy. So I do just the bar, and then you can start to increase it gradually and doing like 25 to 50% of that targeted weight that is programmed. And then same with running, you just gradually increase either your pace or you're just doing some sprints. If you're just running for like an endurance race, or like endurance wise, you're doing like 3 miles, not really a specific pace, maybe just jogging around for like 5 to 10 minutes, just continuous. That's still a part of your warm up and still important part. And this is what I'm really excited to talk about. The mental aspect of a warm up. I think this is just, and I might just be really slow to the game, but this has become really important to me, especially, I think I just realized it a lot through our virtual training and throughout COVID, how important the mental aspect of a warm up was. So warming up is just as important for our minds as it is for our muscles. When doing a tough workout / run, most of the time it's mentally challenging rather than physically challenging. And if we aren't mentally prepared, we are more likely to give up, slow down, or not push ourselves. And I found that a lot when I first started like running, training for my half marathons and things like that. I was like, man, this run was kind of easy physically, but mentally it just like killed me. And it was because I just wasn't mentally preparing beforehand and not in a beneficial way. Warming up should start preparing our mind for what we're about to do. We begin changing our thoughts from what is going on around us or to us to thoughts about what our bodies can do and what it's about to do. And my favorite thing is to be your own hype man. Like I would preach that all day long. Like be your own hype man. Congratulate yourself for taking the time to do this and for your present self and for your future self. I saw this a lot with our virtual training where there'd be days like, I do not want to do this workout, especially, I mean, if you've been to the power station recently, it is a lot colder than it was when we were here. And so just like having to mentally prepare myself and like get in the mindset to do a workout in super hot, like when it was super hot outside or and even inside. And so in the warm up, I'd be like, you know what, like I'm proud of you. Like I'm proud of you for doing this workout and it might not be the greatest workout and you might get tired because of the heat, but other than that, like you're pushing yourself and you're like making yourself better. So that really helped me out a lot. And create a basic routine of exercises to do before each workout and supplement workout specific exercises to get ready for what you're about to do. So that's what I said earlier about having those exercises that are specific to the workout, but creating a routine can kind of help make that mind-body connection. Doing the routine stimulates a conditioned response from the mind to make the switch from your work life and just like regular life mindset to a workout mindset. You can almost trick your mind into being ready for your workout, even on days that you lack motivation. I think today is like a great example. Today is a pretty like gray. It was raining earlier and now it's kind of not, but it just like is an on and off rain. This is not a day that I want to work out or like go for a run or anything like that. But doing this, I have like set aside like 5, 7 exercises that I do all the time. So that is like the beginning of my workout are these like 5 exercises. And it's almost like autopilot, but it is beginning to like change my mind and getting my body ready for what I'm about to do. And then after those exercises, I do those specific the exercise specific things for my workout. But those first, like the first couple minutes, I'm just like turning on the on switch of like, hey, like we're about to do something a little bit harder. Hey, like mind, get ready. This isn't going to be that fun, but it'll be really good. So just like start to get ready for that and prepared. Because if we're not mentally preparing for our workout, our performance could be inhibited. And of course, I'm going to have to tell you about the benefits. These are pretty much everything that I've just said. So everything that I have said, I feel like is a benefit. But this just kind of wraps it up in points for you. So as your muscle temperature increases, oxygen becomes more available. This allows you to contract and relax easily, aka tasks can be performed easier than if you just jumped into an exercise cold. And going back to the wow from last week, if you just were like, oh, let me just do this wow real quick, which it was tough, and it took a lot out of you. So like if you just jumped right in, your body is going from like, in a sense, resting to like almost a max effort. And so that whole first round would probably be your warm up. And then because of that, like you're just not working as well and you're not performing as well. So your time's probably going to be slower than if you warmed up beforehand. Your heart is preparing to work out during the warm up so that when you start to work out, it isn't as strained. Same thing. So like let's say you just jumped into that wow cold. I mean, for me, resting heart rate's around 60. By the time I got up and was like walking around changing, it'd probably be like 70-ish, maybe 80-ish. But if I just jumped into that workout, going from 80 to like 130, 140 is like a big leap, like a pretty big leap. So that's not really good for our hearts. Like that's going to put a lot of strain on our hearts. So a warm up allows our heart to get prepared and gradually hit that point of being able to go from 80 to 130 with like a nice little gradual increase. And so who doesn't want to keep their heart happy? Warming up should increase joint mobility and muscle elasticity, which should help decrease your chance of injury. We all should know that. As you warm up and perform exercise specific movements, your body can make that mind muscle connection quicker, which means quicker muscle contractions. And this can just lead to a lot of quicker reaction times. And then lastly, as you prepare your mind for the challenge the workout brings, you can sustain the load of a workout longer. So like I said earlier, if we're not mentally preparing, sometimes we'll tap out too early, or we'll slow down on our run, or we won't do an extra set or a few extra reps because we're just not in it. We're just not in it mentally, and we're just like totally mentally tired. So to wrap it all up and put a nice little bow on warming up, these are my last little final tips. A couple of sentences just to remind you of why warming up is important and just tips about it. The more intense the workout, the longer the warm up should be. If the exercises require a lot of skill, the longer you need to practice it. And that goes for over time. Practicing a movement over multiple workouts, but then also like if you're about to do a pretty high level, like even a squat. I mean, a squat requires a lot of skill. You need to be warming up and doing a lot of warm up sets to hit that squat. And then a warm up is the most important component of activity, but yet it's the most neglected. And our bodies need time to be able to perform the best that it can. So I hope that encourages you and reminds you about warming up and how important it is. And that is all that I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for joining. I'm going to stop recording.